Hey, Ma! I have been completely obsessed with the movie Tenet lately, so I decided to make my own Sator Square. But more on that later. So I bought a whole bunch of this clay. I got it from the Dollar Tree. It was only $1. I'm going to have a lot of crafts that I have to use it for. Excuse the dodgy video right here, but it gets better, don't worry. What I found with this clay is that you do want to, they recommended water on your hands to kind of hydrate the clay. I like to use like lotion on air dry clay. It works really well. It keeps it from sticking and it makes it very pliable. And so you'll see more of this clay in the future because I bought a whole bunch of it at the time because I was like, air dried clay for $1? How much do you have? Okay, I'll take them all. I rolled out the air dried clay and I have a bunch of different shapes and sizes of cookie cutters. So I made sure that I cut out enough letters for that. Now that the clay was ready and drying, I started working on the canvas. So here I am just using the rulers fine where the middle of the canvas is because the Sator Square has like 5 letters. It's 25 letters total, 5 letters across, 5 letters down. If I started with the middle, I knew I would be able to fit them all in the square on the canvas. Here you see me just using some texture paste. I think this is the texture paste that I made. I'll link that video in the top right. I'm just laying it on kind of thick. I just wanted to make it look somewhat reminiscent of stone. Yeah, this DIY texture paste, you can make it for pennies with baby powder and glue. Yeah, I'm just putting that all on there so that I have a good surface to put the clay on. I was not able to see this movie Tenet in the movie theaters. I live like 20 minutes from an IMAX, and due to the pandemic, I wasn't able to see the movie at the IMAX. I love Christopher Nolan, but not enough to risk my life. Leave a comment down below on what your favorite Christopher Nolan movie is. I just caught up to Tenet on HBO Max. Don't worry, no spoilers. It was as great as I thought it would be. The problem is nobody else in my family has watched it yet, so I really don't have anybody to discuss it. And Christopher Nolan movies are movies that you really need to discuss with someone. So anyway, I've been obsessed, and so I decided to make my own Sator Square, aka Magic Square. Now, I was going to give you a long history about the history of the Sator Square, but the only thing more boring than that is you watching me do this canvas. So I'm going to fast forward both of those, and I will give you the short Wikipedia version. And then if you are intrigued, you can go to YouTube like I did and go down that rabbit hole, because whew, that is a deep rabbit hole. But it's cool because there's a whole bunch of instances of the Sator Square coming up in history, and that's when I first heard about it. I did a report in college on Pompeii, and that's the first known tablet with this palindrome, and I just thought it was neat because I also like puzzles. So I was like, hey, maybe they were just playing with puzzles, but no, there's a lot of people who feel like it has roots in not just Christianity, but other religions as well. So that's interesting also. The clay dried very well. The thicker pieces were a little better than where I allowed it to get too thin. So I would say, I mean, it's very cheap clay. Just roll it out thicker and you'll have some really good results. They'll be fairly strong. You know, you have to be kind of careful. It's air dry clay, but they're strong enough to do things with. So I took them and I tried to stick them in the texture paste to get them to stay, but I think the nature of the texture paste being kind of a quick drying paste and this being air dry clay, some of the pieces I did go back with some tacky glue and glued them on just to make sure that they didn't fall off like while it's hanging on the wall, and that's not a big deal. So I think if I were to do this again, I would do the texture paste and the painting and everything like that of the background, and then I would come back and use glue to glue the letters on it. And I might paint the letters first and then glue them on. You know, it would have saved me a lot of this work. I wanted it to look sort of like a clay. I was kind of playing off of the clay that I used. I wanted it to be sort of reddish, so I used reddish paint, and then I also used some brown but then I went back later and I added some more red back because it got a little bit too muddy for me. I just start with shadowing with the brown paint, and I increasingly add more and more water and turn it more into a wash, but it was still too dark. When you see me later, I had already added some red paint back onto it to brighten it up again. And I moved on to the letters. The clay letters, I wanted them to look gold. I used this gold paint. I put the texture paste, where you see the white, I put the texture paste on top because I wasn't really sure what the direction was I was going in. I'll be honest. So I wound up sanding those down with just like a nail file to get it smooth, and so it would look like stone still. And I'm painting all of the letters just a bright, shiny gold. Just some fun facts about the Sator Square while I'm painting these letters. The Sator Square, and this is, straight off of Wikipedia because that's what I do these days, I guess. The Sator Square, also known as the Magic Square or the Rhoda Square, which is basically Sator backwards. Sometimes the Rhoda is at the top and Sator's at the bottom, so I've seen that variation in my research. But the Sator Square is a two-dimensional word square containing a 5-word Latin palindrome. Palindrome meaning it reads the same frontwards and backwards. The earliest example of the square dates from the ruins of Pompeii. That is what I'm making here. And I did find some very different applications that have been found around the world. And so I think this is something I might revisit. I like the idea of it being a palindrome. And like I said, I'm not going to get into all the meanings and what it might mean to me and what meaning others have seen in it. I'll leave that up to you to do your own research and decide what you want. But, as far as a conversation piece goes or a piece of home decor, I think that this is something that's pretty neat, and that's why I have an idea of something else I want to do with it. But it's definitely a conversation starter. The next step was removing the painter's tape from around the edges. I had an idea of how I wanted to blend the front surface with the sides. I'm just using an ink to blot the sides. This ink color is a little bit lighter than what I used on the front face, and I think it came out pretty nice. I just blot it to kind of blend the edge. And in the fact that I went back and did it this way, I really didn't have to do the painter's tape and everything. I didn't think the line was that crisp, so I did this. Next, I did take some of the ink, and using my fingers, I just kind of added a little bit of tarnish to the gold. I wanted there to be a little bit of dimension with that, and also I used it to kind of cover up some of the weaker areas and a little bit where it kind of rounded. I thought that would just be interesting. At first I was going to mold the clay in silicone. I thought maybe I'd have trouble getting it out of there, so I decided to roll out the clay and use the cookie cutters to get the letters. The letters are a little bit more cartoony or comic than I would prefer. I may do another one using the mold, because what I did like about this is as it dried, it separated from the board that I had it on. As it dried, it kind of lifted up from the mat, and it was very, it slid right off as it dried. So I'm thinking if I do that in the mold, it'll kind of contract a little bit as it dries and it'll pop right out, and I probably won't have a problem because my molds are more boxy than these cookie cutters, which are rounded. I'm going to probably try that next time I do it. The final step after re-injecting myself with fuel in the form of bulletproof coffee was that I took this clear polyacrylic top coat, and I'm just applying it to the gold parts or the letters of the Sator stone so that they'll kind of pop and be extra shiny. And with that, the project's done. All in all, I found this to be a meditative, easy craft. It also got all of that Tenetness out of my system. So I left it on the crafting boards. But I definitely recommend you do some research on it and find out if it's something that interests you, and then try your hand at making a Sator Square. Like I said, you can go get clay for just $1. I used one package for this entire project. So, um, and just remember, we can do it, so can you. If you enjoyed the video and you enjoy our craft videos, please leave a like on the video. And if our DIYs inspire you to do it yourself, please consider subscribing to Hey Maaa. Until next time, bye.